Hey everybody, what's happening? Hopefully that intro got you jacked. Because I was sitting there saying I'm excited for these topics tonight, and everybody's like, "Well, Fred said I don't even know what topics there are tonight."
I don't think that.
Yeah,
I don't think that should surprise anybody
either.
Not anymore.
I didn't see him either, Fred. I'm kind of with you on that one.
There are things to not be surprised about it anymore, and that's one of them too.
Yeah.
We didn't have a strategy meeting this morning about topics, so
I also very much forgot that we were doing this today, and so when Kenny sent us the email saying like, "Here's the social media thing," fellas, I didn't even have a setup, so I was all broken down. We were shooting for the Ascots, and all my stuff was out. I put my setup together in like 10 minutes, and I'm so proud of myself. I mean, it's like a record. But I was afraid of Kenny like yelling at me for being late. So.
You deserve 1 gold star, my friend. Go ahead and we'll put it on your permanent record.
give you a silver.
Was that a silver at the
Ascots? I'll take a platinum, thank you.
To be honest with you, my mind has been in 50 different places. So I didn't actually have the topics up until about 7:30 tonight. And I typically have these locked and loaded. I would say probably about 10 a.m. today, but about maybe last week, but
weeks ahead of time.
Yeah, I'm slipping. Actually, our second topic tonight was kind of something I had in the back of my mind. I don't know why. I was just kind of thinking about like Phantom stuff, and I thought like this would actually be a good topic. So we'll get into that one. But then, of course, the first one talking about Penelope, I think will be a really good one because I wish I would have taken some time now, listened back to our preview or our estimate. What the hell am I talking about? Our New Year's guesses, predictions. Jesus Christ!
I'm all Jordan went boom, didn't he?
He might have. I'm pretty sure that I said Penelope was going to get bought, but I didn't predict MGP. But I think it's
no. I think 100% I said it. If nobody actually checked it, it was me that said it. If nobody verified.
Somebody on the show did say it. Someone specifically called out Penelope. I remember that. I don't know who it was, but I remember that being a point of discussion.
If only there were a way to find out.
I know. I need like an extra 3 hours of my day to go and take care of this stuff.
You need an intern. It's summertime now. You should get a summer intern.
You know what? I had one of our ambassadors. I was working with him today in the warehouse. We're packing up a bunch of stuff to send out to a bunch of people across the country. And he goes, you should probably think about getting some interns. And I go, yeah, it's a great idea. We had to pay them. Like that's the part that we can't really do a lot of right now. But at some point in the future, we will figure that out so we can bring some hired help into.
I had an intern from U of L I didn't have to pay.
Yeah. How long ago was that though?
It was when I was writing Whiskey Women, so that'd have been 10 years ago.
I think times have changed.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people are doing stuff without getting paid now.
A lot of people won't even work for money, so I'm sure they won't work without money.
Well, this was like actual. By the way, it's very funny. True. This was for like credits. Like she got like collegiate credits for working for me. So technically, U of L should have paid me for being like a professor. So
you're accredited university with your silver medals.
Back then it was major research. She was like, we were going through archives and stuff. So yeah. And Robert Fowler in the chat's got a good suggestion. Have him work for whiskey.
I don't know how legal that is either. Brian, you want to step in on that one?
Yeah, let's probably not do that one. Just a suggestion.
Perfect. All right. Well, let me pull up my notes real quick. I'm sorry. I've been off all day today. So,
well, do you want to cancel it and we do it another time?
Yeah. I wish. I mean, we're doing these pretty close back to back since the last one, and that's because I'm gonna be taking a vacation in a week and a half, 10 days, something like that. So it was just an opportunity to get this out the door now,
and I am too. So
yeah, you're gonna be gone too. So it's tough. All right, where is? Now I lost all my BCH notes. There we go. Or BCR, BCH. What am I talking about?
Jeez, what is wrong with you?
Dude, I'm telling you. Yeah, I'm just gonna kind of wing the first part. I usually have like a press release or something to read, but I'm just gonna wing. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and just pull it real quick. Penelope MGP.
I don't know if it's a topic, but Jim Beam announcing the doing a single malt, I think is very interesting.
Yep, I think it is as well. I'm trying to figure out if it's.
I saw that today too, and right away put to the chat to see if you guys had heard before me. But man, that's kind of surprising that they've been apparently sitting on it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I looked at. And well, this is kind of just an off tangent. Now, the American single malt is kind of, I can see people kind of chasing it because I guess it is a category that may or may not catch on. Us sweet corn boys in Kentucky, we may not like it as much, but I can tell you right now, there's an easy way that anybody can get in to the American single malt game, and it's the way that Yellowstone did it. And all you do is you just buy a bunch from MGP and put it in a bottle, and you call it your American single malt.
There you go.
Sounds like the other topic we're going to cover.
It's pretty close, isn't it?
Yep.
All right. Well, let's go ahead. We'll get started, and we'll take it from there. Also, by the way, before we end, I forgot to say is that when we say goodbye, don't leave until I end the broadcast and stick around to let the upload finish, and that way we have the full recording uploaded and stuff like that too. So, okay, fellas. All right, thank you. Everybody in chat, you can do whatever you want. Go ahead and start slinging all kinds of comments there, and we'll get to them if they get there. All right, here we go.
Loading.
Oh yeah, by the way, don't forget to mute as well if you're not going to be on. Okay. It's Lauren's pet peeve is just making sure that people are silent as they're going through here. So here we go. Welcome everybody. We are back with another Bourbon Community Roundtable, and this is number 81. We've got everybody here today, and I'm super excited because these are some topics that I came up with very last minute, but I thought they were going to be very relevant to the show, and especially when we start talking about brands, how they're developed, and kind of how do you traject and how do you build this. And I think there's going to be a lot of good things, a lot of good ways that we can take this to find a lot of different angles in here as well. So we've got everybody here tonight, so I'm glad to see Ryan, Fred, at least the trio's here. So how you doing? Ready to get into tonight's topics and BCR and weekends and fun and bourbon in general?
Happy Tuesday.
Whatever it is today.
I mean, we usually record on Sunday for this, so I'm like, man, I'm excited about this topic because I'm loaded to go with the I assume the Penelope discussion. I mean, there's just so much to talk about the deal in general and the implications. I'm so pumped about that. Ryan, it is good to see you, my friend.
It is great to see you, Fred. You're looking good. Looks like you're fresh off jiu-jitsu or something. You're looking very bright and energetic. So kudos to you, man. You're looking good. And
he just got choked out. He just woke up from it.
And nobody can see that on the podcast. But if you're watching YouTube, you should watch this on YouTube as we do this live. So excited as always for these topics with my 6 best friends I guess 5 because I'm not my best friend. So anyways, great to see you all and excited. Blake's pulling out all the hot stuff tonight. He's got a bunch of Pursuit stuff. So he's on brand tonight.
Let's go ahead and just leave it over to Blake because Blake's sitting there just popping all the best bottles that everybody's waiting to drop on Sealbox right now.
I don't even have mine.
No, I was just going to announce the official release tonight. My bottles came in today, so I have the newest Oak Collection Bourbon, which is 4 CD. So what that's going to be? What else?
April 23.
There we go. April 23. So poured a little bit of that, and then another one. We haven't had a single barrel from y'all in a while, so Pursuit Series 057, which is arrived from Oneville. So. I'm Blake from Steelbox and Bourboner, so always happy to be here and always happy to talk Pursuit Spirit. So thanks for having me.
You didn't try to sneak a barrel or a bottle from Breakings over there?
Well, that's already at the house. Yeah, to bring that one back with me. But yeah, they also have a bourbon coming that I think everybody's going to be really excited about. But yeah, they don't have their bottles yet, so it felt a little bit disingenuous to be drinking it and being like, "Hey, Eric, it's really good. You'll get yours eventually."
So you don't mind rubbing it in our face, but not theirs. Okay, that's
Yeah,
'cause
exactly.
we don't have it
Exactly.
either. So.
Man, you were there you're sending me pictures of the bottling. How do you not have a bottle?
I didn't try it. I was making sure you got the most case counts as possible. So
There we
put
go.
more money in your
There we
pocket.
go.
To be honest, though, I am really jealous of that breaking bourbon barrel because Ryan, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I kind of wish we would had that one back right now.
Yeah, I
because-
can't believe we let that go. What the hell was who made that decision? I feel
I
like I
don't
wasn't
know.
involved.
Yeah, it was. We were able to kind of come together and select that. We were all here in Louisville, and I just grabbed a bunch of stuff. But I mean, Eric, you all selected that one in 2022, like fall time or something like that. It was a while ago.
It was early October.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I got part of the jug behind me here.
Well, there we go. That's
Yeah,
the
I
problem
still
is
got it.
just
I've been
that-
sipping on it since then.
Oh, well, wait till you get another 6 months in the barrel. I swear to
Yeah,
God, that thing's it's magical. And that's what I said. I wish we had it back because we had a few good barrels from that lot, and that was definitely up there. So we're not letting any more of them go. I can tell you that right now.
Heck no. I need those in my repertoire.
All right. Well, Eric, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Eric from Breaking Bourbon. If you're not familiar with us, we do reviews pretty much every day of the week. Release calendar and articles here and there.
I liked whoever posted it from your team. They said, "Do you remember this?" And it was a screenshot of y'all's website back
Oh,
from
yeah.
2014.
Yeah, we were
And it
digging
was
through the
just like
archives.
all the Parkers and just like your reviews and all this other kind
Yeah.
of stuff. And people are going, "Oh, we had it so good back then."
Yeah, those were the days.
Oh, for sure. And Brian.
All right, thanks, guys. Brian with Bourbon Justice and Sipping Corn, and not to be out. Well, I am outdone by Blake every time we do these, but I've got one of the oak collections going on too. This is the 11cc, and it's yummy. That's one of the finished ones. So well done, guys.
Fantastic.
Thank
Well,
you,
good
Brian.
deal.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. I like this. There's a lot of the PS love going on tonight. I'm not hating
Isn't
it.
that nice? We're
I'm not
trying to
hating
make
it at
up
all.
for the Tuesday vibe. We got to fix that a little bit.
Yeah. Fred's still on mute because it's a conflict of interest. You know.
I'm just researching for our conversation, actually. So
I know. I'm just messing with you. I've been very like combative tonight. I
Hey,
don't know.
bring it. Let's go.
Let's go.
Well, let's go ahead and dive into our first topic. So the first one we're going to talk about is Penelope. And this is because, well, I'll just go ahead and read the press release. Go ahead and get it out of the way. So MGP, they have announced that Luxco, its subsidiary, has reached a definitive agreement to acquire 100% of the equity of Penelope Bourbon and its related assets. So founded in 2018, Penelope Bourbon is a family and founder-owned and operated American whiskey company with a diverse portfolio of high-quality whiskeys in the premium plus price tiers. The acquisition includes all intellectual property and inventory of bottled product, as well as Penelope's aging whiskey inventory on a debt and cash-free basis. The upfront consideration is $105 million in cash to be paid at closing, with a further potential earnout contingent consideration upon a maximum cash payout of $110.8 million, measured through December 31st of 2025 if performance conditions are met. The acquisition is expected to be financed by MGP's existing revolving credit facility and cash on hand. So one thing that we had discussed in This Week in Bourbon between Ryan and I is there was some confusion that was going out there, and people just thought that Penelope is getting acquired for $105 million. No. They're getting acquired for $215 million based on performance numbers that are coming out of it. They get their first check for $105 million in June. So now that's out of the way, we can all agree that this is a great move for MGP. This is a great move for Penelope. It all just makes sense because they can bring their cost of goods down a lot more, and they can. And Ryan, I think since people maybe didn't catch This Week in Bourbon, can you go ahead and kind of give a review and a refresher of what you kind of learned about basically this is only going to cost MGP like $5 million at the end of the day?
Yeah, I think like if you look at the the financials, and it makes sense because you're basically taking, for anyone that may or may not know, in the MGP, if you're buying it on the open market, if you're buying a 3 or 4 year old barrel, you're probably paying anywhere from $2,500 to $3,500 a barrel. So in Penelope, because they're in that rapid growth stage, they never really laid down new make. They were always buying aged inventory and churning and burning it. They weren't really carrying a ton on their balance sheet. They were just kind of churning and churning barrels. And so they're paying a high premium for those barrels. But so you replace that with, say a $300 cost of goods sold, because MGP is making it themselves. I mean, really, they can earn this back really quickly. And then, they did I think you read what they present to the shareholders are like, and within the 3 to 4 years, this will only cost them $5 million after, they recoup all that initial investment, because they'll earn so much gross margin back because of using their own distillate and whatnot. So it's a great move for both parties.
And thank you for putting that out there. And now I've kind of have another question I'll bring up for discussion before we get to the other topic that I thought of, is that, do you foresee MGP making any more acquisitions for their own stuff? I'm thinking of things like Smoke Wagon, things like Old Elk. These are companies that are built on brands utilizing MGP, Nashville Barrel Company. So do you think that we could foresee something like this coming in the future, where they see this as more of a move to bring down those cost of goods and bring in a new label in-house? And the reason why they want to do that is because they have yet to be successful on doing their own in-house labels to really kind of take that to mass market and really execute on it well. So I want to kind of put that out there to see if you all think that, do you think it's can happen? Or do you think at this point they've made one acquisition and now they need to kind of like be cash strapped for a little bit until they make another one?
I mean, I wouldn't be shocked at all if they did. I think we kind of forget how big MGP is. I think net income last year was around $200 million. I want to say, in close to $1 billion in revenue. So we're talking about a massive company. And if they can turn like Ryan said, a $500 asset into $7,000 to $8,000 in bottle sales, I think it just makes sense. So the hard part is I think Penelope was that first one because they had just grown so quickly, their case volume was so high. The hard part would be identifying another one like that. I know we mentioned Smoke Wagon, doesn't sound like that will happen, but outside of that, I'm not sure anybody else is doing the same level of cases that, or at least solely sourced from MGP than Penelope was. So, I think there's always others out there, but I think Penelope just made the most sense. So, I wouldn't be shocked if it worked, and then 6 months down the road, they're like, all right, let's go get every single one and just, grab every, Nulu or Natural Barrel Company or whoever it may be and bring them in house, because that's kind of always been the knock on MGP, and why we thought the Luxco merger was so good was, they make great products, but they just don't have the brands out there on the shelf that people want to buy. I don't know. Remus is good, but I don't know a ton of people that are just chasing it. So I'd be really surprised if we went another 6 months without seeing an acquisition.
Well, the Luxco one is a little weird because they were already doing Kentucky stuff. The only real reason that I've seen MGP have any influence on Luxco is pretty much in their Ezra rye category. Like that's all Indiana stuff. So that seems to be kind of a little bit of an outlier there. I would be interested to see what they're thinking in regards of bringing in more brands in-house, because there's a lot of brands that have been built using MGP, and it makes sense for them to start doing this. And I want to give a shout out to Sean Garrity that's in the chat. He kind of put this out there, and he says it's smarter to let MGP let them build brands on their own products and then acquire the brands to get that traction, because it's one of those things. It's a big company move. Like you don't try to go and innovate, right? You go and buy the innovators that are doing something, and then you spin them in, you kind of acquire them and everything like that too. Who else wants to chime in there?
Yeah, that's right. You let the ones fail who are going to fail, and you buy the ones who don't. I mean, it's right out of the playbook.
So
Yeah,
one
too.
one
Go ahead.
thing that's really interesting about this, Brian, you may recall, I actually may have called for your advice, but a couple years ago, shareholders were suing MGP because they say that they were, miscalculating or misrepresenting the cost of aged whiskey, and they were over asking shareholders for money. And I was asked to be an expert witness. I declined. MGPI is publicly traded, just like Brown-Forman, Diageo. And I just took a look into the shareholders, the people who've been buying up a lot of MGPI. One of them, Vanguard, also owns a lot of Brown-Forman. So I think that there is a real when this came out, my first thought was this was to make shareholders happy. This was to make a splash. There's also been rumors that maybe that they are down some barrels and they need the inventory. Which that everyone could use more whiskey. So I don't think that's a. I think that's not a rumor. It's probably a fact. So anytime you make one of these acquisitions, it's really nice to get the whiskey. And Penelope built a very nice brand to go with. So I think that this move was never really about. I think it was about making a splash with shareholders and making a move for the publicly traded dollar, from these fund companies, these mutual fund managers, because that is who MGP is beginning to compete with. They're starting to get those conversations on Wall Street, the same that Cargill get, the same that Diageo get, and they're taking a step up. And this purchase, that big check, it's kind of like paying for a quarterback in the NFL. A good brand, the way that everything's growing, those checks are going to keep getting bigger. And I remember when High West was purchased for 160 million, 10 years ago. I mean, now that's probably, that brand it's turned into, that probably was not as good of an investment for Constellation as they wanted to be. But like, this is a very good, mutually aligned acquisition that just screams to me really going to make the shareholders happy.
Yeah, another fascinating thing, you think I was looking at this, I got this report from I can't say where, but anyways, it was looking at it was just looking at the US competitive landscape and US market share of the different spirits companies. You think MGP is like one of the bigger ones, where in reality they're less than 1% of the total market. You have Diageo, it's 20%, Bacardi 8%, Sazerac 8%, Pernod Ricard 7%, Beam Suntory 7%, Brown-Forman 5%, Louis Vuitton, Moet, Hennessy, Tito's, Heaven Hill, Proximo, Campari, EJ Gallo, Remy. Anyways, I'm naming all these that are a lot bigger than MGP. And if MGP is going to start competing as a publicly traded company with those, they got to have brands to build on. You got to hit the on premise. What I'm learning is that really brands are scaled. And that's what's going to be the challenge for Penelope as they, try to build on this, is that they've done the distribution model off premise, but how do they find into that where they get on bars and restaurants at that, they have that white label product, that's priced in that 35, 40, but that's what takes brands and companies to the next level, is that on premise where you get on cocktail bars, you're constantly steady flow of product moving through restaurants and bars. And so this is the step where they can try to really take that next level with them.
They had to probably be in the sub 20, sub
well,
25
but I think they can
category
do
then.
that with their, with bringing the brand in house, they can totally do that. But whereas Penelope could probably never done that sourcing, from MGP. So, and two, there's other MGP brands that are bigger. I can't get into case sizes, but I know Old Elk's probably bigger than Penelope. I'm not sure on Smoke Wagons. Smoke Wagon, I think Aaron's comfortable with what they're doing. I think they got a good thing going. I think Penelope was just I think they were brilliant, and they had a game plan of like, this is our goal to get acquired. You don't see that much cash being dumped into the top line revenue unless your goal is to get acquired, because you're just otherwise you're just going to keep burning cash and burning to keep that top line growing. And they were brilliant. They saw the trends that people liked with toasted, with Basil Hayden's low proof, with finishing, and they really nailed it. They really had great packaging, great story, and whatnot, and they were able to capitalize that. A lot of new bourbon drinkers getting into the market. MGP said this is a great vehicle that we can just pump our cost of goods into their system. Let's see where we can take this.
And one thing you got to remember, MGP is built on being a source provider. So they make, a lot of the vodkas that you go into the store and buy, it's actually made by either MGP or Cargill. We're talking about whiskey, but they do a lot of food alcohol related stuff. So they're beyond whiskey. They have been horrible, absolutely horrible at managing a portfolio to serve their own brands. So when they acquired Luxco, or the partnership, or whatever you want to call it, that was perfect for them. And it was perfect for Luxco because they had been cut off from Heaven Hill from their source provider. And now they, are perfectly married with MGP. So I think this is a good fit. Penelope is a hot brand. Whenever I've given a bad Penelope review, their fans have come after me, and that's always a good sign of a healthy brand. When you have fans so loyal that they'll talk up a really bad whiskey just because they're fans of the product,
Yeah. And I also think that when I look at this, to what Ryan's point was, is that they did kind of chase some trends. They went the toasted route. They went the finished route. They had the rosé cast, the vino, the Valencia, the now the new Rio. Like, it's not just straight MGP. Whereas you see a lot of straight MGP brands, they're competing on the same level. And so what they did is they tried to kind of up level a little bit, and they kind of leapfrogged a lot of these brands, and they kind of were able to put themselves in a limelight where they could come out, and they've got like 9 flagship SKUs now that they do. So it kind of just goes to show you that instead of just coming out with a straight bourbon whiskey, they were able to capitalize on creating a product that is kind of really, I wouldn't say narrow focus, but you do some finishing on into it, and now you create a new SKU, but you really scale that SKU up. It's just not a one-time limited release sort of thing. But for some reason, that big P on the bottle really resonated with a lot of people, and it just really kind of captivated a lot of folks, and really kind of took them, and like I said, a lot of things happen through the whiskey community. I don't know a time when I don't scroll through Facebook and I see people's back bars and I don't see multiple bottles of Penelope back there. So they were able to capitalize on a few different markets and being able to get the whiskey geek in, and then continue to kind of infiltrate into the broader consumer market as well.
One last point I have about this. What's, fascinating when you get in this world and you learn the business side of it is that they grew pretty fast from 2021 to 2022. Like, I almost want to say like 30,000 cases to 75,000 cases. And that's what the deal was based on. So we're yet to see if that, that expansion is the product being pulled through. And a lot of deals are based on that. And that's probably why you see this $200 million carrot dangled at the end of it. Is like, yeah, you were able to scale, get product on the shelf, but let's see if that pull through happens to where then they're rewarded at the end. So that's one fascinating thing about this. I love this is the stuff that really interests me about this whole industry are those, I guess back end things like working the deals and whatnot. Because people see like, oh, you did 75,000 cases. You're like, yeah, it was great, but you just put the product down the market. Let's see if it gets pulled through or whatnot. So it's smart for MGP to kind of dangle that carrot for them at the end also.
Yep. And so let's go ahead and dive into my second idea that I have for this.
I have one more thing on the Penelope thing.
We're still staying on Penelope.
Oh, okay. All right.
I want you to go ahead. Chime in.
So Well, I don't know if this is where you're going to go, but this is, we kind of talk about like the deal kind of making sense. I want to talk about like the implications it has on the industry. This is so bad for the industry. This is great for Penelope. It's great for MGP, but we know so many people that are just seeing these dollar signs and like, oh my God, I got to get into this. The same way that all these celebrities see that George Clooney made $1 billion off his tequila. You're seeing these people, these business folks are like getting in, like they have a passion. They're getting this whiskey, the bottle. It's great. They bring in somebody who knows the industry and they love it so much. And they think they're going to be able to sell in 5-6 years. I mean, I first saw this with Smooth Ambler, Angel's Envy, and Rabbit Hole. I can't tell you how many people.
Kentucky Owl, High West. Everybody thought it was a gold
High
chase,
West,
gold
Kentucky
rush.
Owl, Wilderness
Yeah,
Trail.
everybody.
I mean, everybody. There's been so many of these dollars dropping, but I just don't think. I just think it's too late to get in the game now. So if you are somebody like on the fence trying to get into bourbon, if you don't have your plan set, you're not going to get $100 million, $200 million. It's not going to happen. And I think that this sale is going to create false hope for people out there because it's just not going to happen. I mean, and I've heard, I talked to a distiller today about like how tired he is of like going through the distributor conversations every time a new sales rep comes in. It's just like, they're just burnt out. This game, and you two, Ryan and Kenny, it better than anybody on this call except maybe Blake, because you all have brands and you're out there talking about them, hustling about them all the time. And you've put your livelihood, you put your life on the lines with these, like your actual, financial everything in them. And I just look at this as like, man, if the wrong people see this, more brands are going to come in. It's going to water everything else down. And I think the implications for the sale of this is not good.
Well, I don't know if it's the sale. It's not good. I think we are going to see some more in the future. There's a few different ways to kind of take that the way that I see it, but it kind of spins me off into the other topic that I wanted to bring up with this is that could you see more brands, or is there value in the brand versus just having a value in owning the distillery? You brought up Wilderness Trail. Wilderness Trail is a great example of Campari buying maybe a little bit of the brand, but they also had this massive distillery behind it. And so that can start pumping out more product for potentially even more brands or offshoots or helping out Wild Turkey or whatever it's going to be. And so there was value in actually having the physical location that could help build that out. The other part about this is like, this has been one of the, handful of times where we see a brand get purchased that doesn't own a distillery, and it is coming from the source of it. And so I look at this and I think, okay, well, who else is building out big distilleries? Bardstown Bourbon Company. You've got some other ones coming online, some other people that we talk about in other different states that are just big contract players. Could we see them take another page out of this playbook and say, gosh, there's something here because we can lower the cost of goods. We could eventually build this brand up to be bigger than what it is right now. So I kind of want to put that out there to you all. And the other thing, Fred, you just kind of talked about, like, is this good for the industry? I also kind of see this flipping at some point too, because right now MGP is the big player in the sourced market game. When you have a lot of barrels in the open market at a decent price, at good whiskey, it is coming from MGP. However, Ryan and I know a few other, Blake as well, we see the barrels on the open market and we get to see those price books, every few weeks, and prices are starting to come down when it comes to Kentucky source stuff. The idea that people were going to go into this gold rush of trying to buy a bunch of barrels for an investment purpose and sit on them and hoping they're going to cash out them at 4 to 5 years old between $4,000 and $5,000. that might not happen so much as quick as they had hoped. I think the people understand that you can hold this out a little bit longer, and I think the prices are going to continue to drop. But we will start seeing more brands being built on Bardstown Bourbon Company juice. There's some that are already doing it. So can we see this happen in the future where a brand is more valuable than just having the physical assets of having a location and a still and the traditional DSP process, I guess you could say.
I think Kitty makes a good point because up until Penelope, we had seen deals being done based on really production. If we look at it, the case count for Wilderness Trail and Green River and Bardstown, those were done almost solely on their production capacity, whereas this was the complete opposite. This was more like that High West style of a deal. So I think there's just room out there for all of it. There's no perfect way to create a brand. There's no perfect way in kind of to Fred's point, I think a lot of people may have missed the boat. And if you're not doing it for the right reasons anyway, you're going to burn out really quickly because it is a fairly tough industry. But if you want to get in, I also do consulting, $1,000 an hour, all, but it just, I think, and somebody put it in the chat as well, it's just like all the hedge funds, and Kenny mentioned people buying barrels and holding them for investment. There have to be brands that support those barrels, and you have to have those connections. So as more and more distillation capacity comes online, it'll just be interesting to see if we do hit that glut. Obviously at some point supply is going to outpace demand. Is that in 2 years? Is it in 10 years? Is it in 20 years? It's too hard to tell.
I think the fascinating thing is those investor barrels. It's like, they, like you said, they were looking on those for returns, and 4-5 years, do they all of a sudden, instead of, looking for the return in 4 to 5 years, do they start looking at acquiring a company to, instead of selling those barrels on an open market, do they look to a brand to, capitalize on their or help to look for a brand to help get them a return on that investment? Do they acquire someone like a Nashville Barrel Company who, relies on, not just MGP, but other source markets, or, a brand that could really capitalize on having a good steady stream of good quality source barrels? Is that how they find their exit instead of flipping barrels on the source market? So it's going to be fascinating because there's going to be a lot. And I still think the demand, I do agree with Fred. If you're the wrong type of person, don't know what you're doing in the industry, no longer can you just get a brand and start getting traction. It's like, hell, even we go into a distributor meeting and they're like, let me guess, you're sourcing from MGP. And you're like, no, we're not. And they're like, oh, thank God. It's like, because that's what seems to be the playbook. And, but I think still, if you have the right people behind you, there's still a thirst for exciting new things if you have a different angle. But I do fear that they see this kind of like, I think, the contract facilities have benefited from the most when High West and Kentucky Owl and all them sold, and Angel's Envy. But now it's like, seeing Penelope, does that increase more interest in contract distilling? Because people will see this kind of like shiny prize with Penelope. I don't know. It's a fascinating time.
I think it's going to be a little bit like turning the ocean liner. I mean, we're not, maybe we're predicting things now, but it's not going to happen for several years. I mean, the investors who aren't getting the return that they thought, now that their whiskey's turning 4 years old, they'll let it ride for 6. You'll have more people come in. We're still waiting on other markets to open up. Maybe that loosens things up, but if none of that happens, we're running straight toward a glut.
Well, MGP, I feel, is very proud of their own product. So I can't really see them purchasing other distilleries so much. So, and if they're not worried about volume per se, I think they're constantly going to be on the lookout for kind of niche brands that offer something that, using their own bourbon or or own whiskey, offering something kind of like why they bought Penelope. So if you look at some of the other brands like we brought up before, like Old Elk, maybe that's because they look to them for the distillery experience, that the whole thing that they have going on out there, or some of the other brands that might be what they're going to gravitate to in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think this has proven is that there is value in a brand name, and this is one I think is probably the most notable of recent times, only because we have seen in the past few years a lot of acquisitions, and most of those are based on people that have distilling capacity, and this is one that's truly built off a brand. And the one that I like about it so much is that this isn't a premium plus category. Most of their bottles are, their architect, their finished stuff. I mean, you're looking between $65 to $90 for a lot of the things that they're doing, and they're at that price category because of what it takes to buy whiskey on an open market, do their process to it, and get it out to market, then to be able to make their margin. And now that they can basically continue to keep those margins there from MGP, it makes a whole lot of sense for them. I'm sorry to hear from the consumer if you're like, oh, well, this is great because now it's going to be cheaper. That's not happening, right? I mean, that's the last thing that you're going to see that's happened. This is going to be one thing that they look at it as like, well, people are already buying it for $80. We're going to keep selling it for $80. And who knows what this whole, not to switch pivot or anything like that, but the whole white oak barrel shortage, whatever looming thing over the next 20 years, and they're going like, well, we can use that as another excuse to raise prices one more time. So there's a lot of good things that we'll see on the horizon. But I want to open up for the roundtable if there's any more last comments before we jump into the next topic.
My only thought is it was brought up with the with the bar, like getting it on premise more. I think that is the flaw to Penelope, is that they are not their bottles are often too tall for some back bars to be in a certain spot. It is slender. I don't know. And if you take a look at MGP's bottles, I don't know how well they line up. It's just the total package, like they use different closures, they use different bottles, they have a very different etch design. So that's something that could pose as a risk to MGP, is the package itself. So I don't know if they're going to rebrand it, if that's a conversation they're going to have. But most of MGP's products are not in nearly as good of a bottle as what Penelope is. And I think that if they change that bottle too much, maybe if they can make it shorter, but if they change that design, they will kill the brand.
Yeah, I agree. I have just a comment on a glut. I don't think there's a glut. I think just consumers are more choosy and more educated. You have a lot of new consumers entering the market, trying different things. There's a lot thrown at them in the past 3 to 4 years, with different SKUs, this and that. But the ones that are good and stand out, I think that there's going to be plenty of demand for them. It's just you can't throw your name on a bottle anymore and expect success like people did during 2019 to 2021. But I think there's still plenty of room for good quality brands, have good stories, good product on the shelf, and good distribution and whatnot. So that's my thought.
Unless you just use Amber on a barrel,
your name Brana,
then
you're
all
doomed.
your problems are solved, and you got to figure it. Still my motto 101. Here we go.
You got one foot in the grave if you're already doing that.
Amberana?
Unless you mix it with
double
honey
Amberana.
and you call it a Brazilian name, then you're fine.
Then you'll be fine. Yes. Penelope figured that one out.
That's right. Tastes like a
But-
cinnamon roll.
Yes. I mean, right, us on this show. If you listen to This Week in Bourbon, we're not the biggest Amberana fans, but it is a certain taste profile for certain people, and maybe just during Christmas for me, but that's about it. Y'all ready to move on? Let's go ahead and do it. So this is going to be kind of a dovetailing into what Ryan talked about in regards of brands and where they come out of nowhere. And this kind of like, I had this thought, it was a few weeks ago, and I just thought to myself, we look at a brand back in history of what Ezra Brooks was. And I know Fred could probably give a lot more clarity and color on this as well, but Ezra Brooks was not a real person. It was a fictitious name, came out of nowhere, and they were really going out to compete against Jack Daniels. They had a lot of infringements and trademarks and bottle designs and everything like that. But it was really just a way for them to come out of the gate, this kind of phantom brand, and be able to piggyback off of something else. And so I started thinking to myself, and I go, could something like that happen today? Today, as Ryan said, consumers are more educated than they have ever been before. And a lot of people want to hear a story. And so if you come out with a brand of a fictitious name, a fictitious story, and it was just, I mean, it was all BS, literally everything from top to bottom. And let's say you even went even further and you said this brand received double, quadruple platinum gold at some random made up fictitious international spirits competition, and you put that out there, will people believe it? Like, is this something that could potentially happen today, and could people fall for it? So I kind of want to put that out to you all and say, like, are consumers, they're so numb, like they don't care. All they see is like 99 points by Fred Minnick with 3 N's in his name, because he can't sue over that one, right? But it's one of those things that
I don't know, Brian, can I?
I'll take that case.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's pick some other fake author. Like literally, you can name anything out there and just put it on a shelf talker. And would it sell? Would this capture the attention of people? I'll put it out there.
All right. So
are you trying to get me in trouble tonight? Because there was a topic earlier that we were discussing amongst ourselves, and I don't know.
This is how Ryan. This is how Kenny is. He gets that proprietary information, right? And he uses it on us later when we're not suspecting. But I'm going to jump in and say, like, look, if somebody can add an extra L to barrel and completely redefine how we even how we change our word processing and everything to write about it. I mean, when they came out, I thought this was the lamest name ever. And I remember talking to Joe. He's like, "Yeah, we just didn't want to have a story. But you got an extra L on barrel, and I mean, it's worked out just fine for them." And I got to tell you, they are one of the best competition products out there. Period. I mean, I feel like they don't make a lot of claims like we're the most awarded or whatever. But I would say that if you take a look at in the competitions that Barrel competes in, that they have a high win rate over the other brands, but they don't make those kinds of claims. But
Barrel also kind of has a story now, though, right? Like they blend and bottle at cash strength. Like that was their kind of shtick, right? But I'm kind of thinking of, I don't know. Let's take our middle names between us three, put them on a label, call it 86 proof, and put it out there with a bunch of fake awards and accolades. And as somebody else here in the chat said, like Matthew Layton says, if we can get it written up in Gear Patrol, then who knows? Like maybe we got something.
Will Larceny sue me if my middle name is Larson and I put Larson Bourbon? I think we got something there. I think I could be onto something. But I mean, I think as much as this group and everybody listening to this would probably say, like, of course that wouldn't work. It would. Like, I just think, the majority of consumers, they don't dig enough. They want something cool and something they connect with and a story they can relate to their friends. And, in general, nobody's doing all the research and the hard work and figuring out, like, is this a true story? So I have no doubt that something like that could play out today. And at the end of the day, it's like, is that the worst thing? I don't think so. Like, is it good? Like, if I tell somebody a fake story about, it's my granddad's recipe that we found in the basement and I sourced it from MGP, but it's really good bourbon, like, not something I'm going to do, but, as long as it's good and not extremely overpriced, I think that's fine. So, I'm sure we'll see 10 more Ezra Brooks over the next 10 to 15 years. So.
Yeah, I think we see it to some extent, not to the extent that the guy who started Ezra Brooks did, Frank Silverman, but he went beyond. You had the exact same bottle, all those sorts of things, but you see pieces of it. You see bottles that look like popular brands. You see names that are somewhat similar to popular brands, and when you do that, Evan Williams had to sue another brand that tried to use Williams in the name and had a similar bottle. So you see that coming out, and I think you're going to continue to see it. And brands want to get as close as they can to the line of not infringing, or infringing and not getting held responsible for it. I mean, it's one of the ways to market. It's one of the ways to try to get people's attention.
I mean, one of the easy ones to point at was Orphan Barrel over the last 10 years. There were, believe if you want to, but it seemed a lot of big made up story. But boy, do labels sell bourbon, because they were all gorgeous labels and they sold, and some of them were really good, the bourbon, and others were just really so-so, and they just released another one, but I'm not sure if anybody's even realizes it anymore.
Well, the other thing that they had going for them was some high age statements. I think that's what sold a lot of it. A lot of it was 17, 18, 19, 20 years, which is great. And I think that's anytime you have a high age statement on something, it's fantastic. And that kind of there's a great, everybody kind of knows Skew from Skew's Recent Eats on Twitter. He was really big into whiskey for a while and he kind of fell off. But he had a great idea one day and he goes, if I ever start a brand, I'm just going to call it 15 year. It's not that I'm a 15-year bourbon. It's going to say 15 year on the label. And you look at that and you're like, that's a fantastic idea, because I think consumers are naive enough to just look right past it. Like, it's a non-age stated whiskey called 15 year. And so we could see something like that potentially come across the future too.
But that's absolute deception and with intent.
So was Ezra Brooks.
Yeah, but that's not an age statement. That's when you're stating an age, that's actually regulated. And I have no doubt that they would get a class action on that. No doubt. But anyway,
you try it
from 10 year to 10 star, or
I mean, and those suits have came and people have lost. So those have happened.
Old Charter 8, yeah.
And they've had to change it, but and sometimes they win. But I've been looking around my office trying to find a kind of fictitious name, and I've been really, everything seems that from something like 3 Chord to Fistful,
Steelbuck,
yes, Tomfoolery. They all have like a
there's some story behind it.
Yeah,
there's some story. And that's kind of where I was looking at, is just could the idea of Ezra ever pop up again, where it's some brand, you don't know what it is, you don't know where it come from, it's got a name, it's got a decent price point.
I mean, Frank August is kind of that. I mean, it's
true.
It's not a made up name, because I think Frank is the names are somebody. I know August is
around like B Frank, like the genuine, essentially.
Yeah, and they were
August is like a son of one of the owners, but
they were so thoughtful and all that. I mean, I sat through their presentation. It was very impressive, like how much thought went into creating that glass and their market and their photos. I mean, if there wasn't a story to it, they made a story about not having a story. Yeah.
It is great packaging and great whiskey and everything. It just, you were just saying, what are those names that really, because I don't think it was actually a person. It was just like 2 names they put together, and they're doing very well. We'll see. I mean, I think just people care they just wonder if it's toasted or not. I don't know. That's they don't care who's on the name. And, I don't know. We'll see. With this whole Marianne Eves press release, I don't know why it's bothering me so much, but it's like she's coming out with this brand that, supposedly it's 5.5 years old. Supposedly it's her first, or talking about how she distilled it and aged it and bottled it, Bardstown Bourbon Company. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, 5.5 years ago, you were at Castle and Key. So what am I just like, what am I missing here? It's like, if we gotten that too far, like, we're no way just cares. But I guess I don't know. I'm sure there's an explanation, but that just kind of
Well, it was
like,
distilled at Bardstown Bourbon Company, is what it said in the press
yeah, but it
release.
says she distilled it.
I think it says she.
There's nobody distills anything at Bardstown Bourbon Company except the employees at Bardstown Bourbon Company. Like, we should probably set that record straight.
Okay, then don't say it on your press release. Then.
Well,
I'm just
that's the grand mystery in all this, is like, you can say that.
Yeah, Chicken Cock does that. I mean, that's people use those facilities and use their mash bill.
Okay, sure. That's
You know.
fine, but she was at Castle and Key when this was made. So you're telling me while she's at Castle and Key, she had Steve Nally make up this mash bill for her. I don't know. It just
The math
add
doesn't
up to
work
me.
out. You're right. I mean, it's an Ezra Brooks example. I mean, I think that's right. And there's and Jacob, who does that Coming Whiskey, did that or posted that rebill, or I don't even know how it's pronounced, but it looks exactly like Rebel. People are trying to mimic other brands. They're trying to, they're making up stories along the way, and they've always done it in bourbon. I mean, nothing should surprise us.
I know. I just get frustrated because we try so hard to be authentic and tell the true story that stuff like this happen. It doesn't matter. So whatever. We should just toast it, amber on it, honey it, and tell them I distilled it because I went to Moonshine University for 5 days. There we go.
Distiller.
There we go.
Master distiller.
Oh,
That's right.
Hitting the mic drop right there, man.
Well,
Oh.
I mean, I think when it comes to all of this stuff, like, so Ryan, are you speaking at this from your heart as a whiskey fan here, or more as like a brand owner?
I think both. I think both. It's like, I think it's just gone too far where it's like it's like, Marion, you're a great blender, you're a great taster. Like, you don't need to and there's probably a better explanation to this, but when reading that, I'm just like, wait a minute, this just doesn't add up. It seems like they're trying to stretch it to make it this more romantic thing than it doesn't need to be. Like, I guess that's it comes off inauthentic. It's like, okay, how far have we come where we're just like making up all these stories that people don't even care, I guess.
I think Marianne has an enormous fan base and people do care. I think they do like those details, and she may have moonlighted over there. I mean, I haven't asked her, but
yeah, that may be very well the case. And
I also, when it comes to that HR thing, I'd always be very cautious of like making sure the timeline matches up, right? Because you don't want that phone call coming in from a Brian like person, like, so we see that you said you were doing this at this time when you were supposed to be here. We took a look at our records, and you had a long lunch break that day.
It must have been a 3-day mash.
But I think there will be nothing more egregious in this day in whiskey than when Templeton was taking Indiana rye in 2007 to 2009 and bottling it and saying it was from Templeton, Iowa. I mean, they were like in 50 states and they had a still this big in like a barn. Oh yeah, this is our recipe, and Al Capone drank it, and nothing will be more egregious than that in terms of
they were adding things to it.
Yeah, so, and then they were adding stuff to it. Yeah.
It's kind of a lot like the finish category. So, it's all come full circle.
Oh, boy.
Ryan's on fire tonight.
Aaron Goldfarb, who said basically people are dying to have flavored whiskey by not calling it flavored whiskey, or without calling it flavored whiskey. It's not too far from the truth.
That's right.
Yeah, well, we should probably go ahead and end this conversation before
I'm already in trouble.
All the Swifties of Marianne Eves come after us because we're dogging.
I don't know. I don't think it'll be anything of that point. I mean, I think Marianne would probably love to come on and just talk about it.
Yeah, I'm just curious. It's just like, okay, I'm trying to add it up. So I'm sure there's a good explanation. You read a press release like that and you're like, okay, well, that doesn't match up. So I'm not like saying they're lying. I just want an explanation. It's a fair question, I think.
I got to read the press release.
Well, it just means that Ryan and I, when we have our distillation days at Bardstown Bourbon Company, we just need to be present. I don't even think we need to be present in the building. We just need to do a better job at selling the story that Ryan Cecil distilled, aged, blended, and bottled this at Bardstown Bourbon Company.
And
after only
bottled.
spending 5 days in Moonshine U. I mean, if that doesn't scream like I'm a kid that's a junior in high school and I just went to college, that's what it is right there.
I got a big whiff of CO2 out of that fermentation tank, and it really made the difference. And now I'm the liquid advisor for, that instead of Steve Nally being it, I'm the. Anyways, yep.
No, I think you're right. I mean, when we look at this, there is romanticism that happens inside of whiskey, and there's a lot of storytelling that goes on, and everything is so much how you can twist words to make it sound in your favor, especially when you look at press releases. You look at what people say, you look at how things are made or not made or brought in or just transformed under your own process, and you put some fancy words next to it. This is running rampant right now, and I think this is one thing that we will kind of see. I mean, it is kind of like a modern day Ezra Brooks, where we see people that are, and it's not just, I'm not pointing fingers at one person here, but this is running rampant between a lot of different people where they are doing a lot of this sort of stuff, where they are bringing in product and maybe making one small change to it and calling it their own. But is it really something that is deserving of the accolades that they do get? And so I guess it's gonna be time that'll tell whether we see that kind of play out. But this is one thing that I think we all of us here, we got to understand we're 1%ers of bourbon, but we don't do enough of making people that listen to this challenge that as well. A lot of us just kind of take it, like you read it at face value, but instead you don't dig in and read between the lines to figure out, is this actually authentic? And I hope that we all kind of continue to challenge that as we go forward, because if we don't, then all it does is just continue to spread, and then it becomes into the mainstream and so on and so forth. And then it gets picked up by Gear Patrol and Tasting Table and whatever kind of,
Then next thing
things
you
that-
are is a flavored tequila under George Clooney that everybody thinks is healthy and the best thing ever. And I don't want bourbon to be that. I know that's great for the companies that own it, but that's not what I grew up on. That's not what built our state. That's not what built our industry. And I'm tired of it. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, that's fair. And look, I want to say, I just read the press release. Probably that little section definitely could have been worded better. But I think Marianne is actually someone who has the bourbon chops, and she's been there, done that. She's done a lot on a lot of brands and consulted on a lot of things that that aren't even public. So I hope that this brand does well, and we're already talking about it, so that is always a good sign, But I think when it comes to Kenny, what you were saying about what were you saying? It was like
Ezra Brooks. I don't know.
Yeah, we were just talking about like the transparency or calling things out or whatever. I think there's probably about
Consumers need to hold people accountable.
Yeah, fair.
We talked about this on one of our last podcasts when we talked about the finishing category, just because there is so many bad actors out there that are just adding flavor packets, adding gallons of port, adding whatever, and just blending it and putting it out to market, that a lot of the consumers do not put forth the effort to make sure that they're holding the brands accountable. They're not asking the hard questions. And that's the detrimental part about that particular category, is that it just leads itself open to a bunch of bad actors.
Yeah. And I don't think that there's many more egregious things than that exact thing happening in whiskey right now. The barrel finishing category is out of control. It's out of control. And there are things added, but also fermentation. No one ever talks about the multiple amount of enzymes that go into a lot of fermenters. It doesn't even come up doesn't even very rarely registers on the TTB radar. I mean, there's so much stuff happening to what people are putting in their body. They don't even know, and there's so little that we can do because it falls under the trade, protected trade, that they don't have to disclose. So yeah, there's a lot of shit happening out there.
Well, we don't know what half the stuff is in the hamburgers we eat through the drive-through anyway. So I guess it all comes full circle.
Definitely a rat hair.
Yeah. Lesson of the day is don't have caffeine after 2. It makes you very combative, and it's I'm not like trying to poke the bear or instigate. It's just I don't know. I'm passionate about the integrity of what we do and whatnot. And I'm not saying that Marianne's not doing that. That just threw me off guard today. And so I'm like, oh, it's like coming off a lot of stuff we just talked about. So I'm sure everything's fine and great. And yeah.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and end it again before people start bringing out the pitchforks at us and all of a sudden start boycotting Cecil just because of what he said there. So I want to say thank you everybody that kind of tuned in you did tune in, but this is again what we had a pretty good run with it until the end there. It got a little dicey, but that's Cecil for you. He brings the hot takes and it's always good to have. But I want to go ahead and let the guys at the bottom here give their sign off. So Blake, you go ahead and do it first since you got terrible audio quality. And you forgot to take yourself off mute.
I thought you did that actually. I thought that was one of Lauren's requirements for us. No, Blake from Steelbox, thanks for having me. Always a fun topic. It's good to get in here and debate those a little bit. And yeah, another good roundtable. Thanks, guys.
For sure. And Brian.
All right, Brian with Sipping Corn and Bourbon Justice. Thanks for having me. And Ryan, I got your back on this. I just wanted to say amen while you were talking. So let's go get them. Have a good one, guys.
At least my attorney believes in me. That's good.
You got one person with you got your back there.
That's right.
And Eric.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. It was a great discussion, good topics, and I guess I'll see you guys another 3 months.
Perfect. Well, good deal. Well, thank you all for joining us. Thank you everybody that tuned in live that was able to do this. If you want to join in live next time, you need to pay attention to Instagram about 2 hours before it does go online, or you need to be able to be on Patreon or something like that, or follow these guys down here because we're all tweeting about it or talking about it. But I promise I'll give a better heads up next time. This is just one of those things that got a lot of stuff going on and try to cram it all in a short week. But make sure you follow Bourbon Pursuit. If you like the show, share it with a friend, talk about it. Just have them listen to it. I think one of the coolest things that we're able to do is I've had a few new people that have signed on and listened because they've heard about or they found out about Bourbon Pursuit either through a tasting of Pursuit United or found about it from a whiskey festival recently. So welcome to those folks that are chiming in and listening to this. This is fantastic to be able to hear. And as well, also go follow our friend Fred Minnick over at fredminnick.com and Fred Minnick on YouTube and all that other good stuff too. But with that, cheers, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Toodles.
Pocket sucks.
Cheers.
All right. You're free to take yourselves off mute now. Blake, if you didn't know, you're out of disk space on your computer.
Oh, for God's sake.
That's what StreamYard's telling me.
Oh, you
can tell that from there.
It says that Blake's device is out of
from
storage space and the recordings have stopped.
Brian, that was disk, not the other thing.
So
now
I am rereading the press release now.
Oh,
there's the Rio.
We never got the Rio. We've never been on Penelope's sample train.
And
even though we were on the show, they never sent us anything.
What were you saying, Fred?
I just read the press release. That clause is very, very confusing.
Yeah, it definitely is.
So,
well,
you're all good, man.
Well, I mean, this is one of those things. I know we're off here, but it talked about like this is her. She put it on Instagram saying this is her proudest moment because this is the first whiskey that she has distilled and released on her own.
Yeah.
But if it's at Bardstown, she didn't really distill it. I mean, I don't know. It's like it's hard to really say that. It's
Maybe they
So
made
it's
an
like
exception.
on the one hand, you either distilled it and you were going behind your company's back, or on the other hand, you didn't distill it and you're making it up. So it's like I don't know.
Ooh, Paste Magazine's already written about it.
oh, dude, I got a Google News alert. It's all over, pretty much everywhere. Tasting Table, all these other places.
I mean, those
And
are
it
all
says
those
that
are all just paid.
Yeah, it's
placements,
all
right?
paid.
well, it's
Does
not
Yeah,
paid.
Pace audience even
Yeah.
care though?
It's
Paid-
not that it's paid. It's just they have a really good PR firm, and then they probably paid through PR Newswire or whatever it is.
Yeah, the Paste one, Jim Vorel is a great fucking writer.
Mhm.
He breaks it down actually. I'll put the article in the chat. This is a good article. Yeah, this guy reminds me of me from a long time ago, back before I started doing all this shit. really well written story. I was telling Jacqueline today how much I just miss writing. I just miss it so much. If only you could make a living as a writer. Instead, I have to talk all the time.
You got to do top 10s.
Top 10s and top 100s.
Top
Yeah, you're
10
right. This
videos.
it's a pretty critical article, isn't it?
Yeah. Jim is a great writer. I love his work.
What is it? The paste?
Paste Magazine.
He just
You
put it in
post-
the chat.
Yeah, put it in the chat.
Oh, I was looking on YouTube. Hold on. Okay. Private chat.
Yeah.
Oh boy, I'm already getting emails. Oh, somebody says they have my back. All right, perfect. So I got two people.
It's a Jerry Maguire story.
Who's coming with me? Besides the goldfish. Brian's my Renee Zellweger.
Yeah, you're right. He makes a lot of good points in there. It's pretty critical, and I agree with a lot of them. I think it is hard to come out with a $129 bourbon at 5.5 years and ask that kind of price tag at 95.2 proof. I mean, that's gonna be very, very difficult.
Yeah, all valid.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah, if people pay though, I mean, shit. I suppose they will, right? What
here's the
I
thing.
mean,
It's
name
the
3
age old tale
brands
of like
that have-
you can always sell your first bottle. It's will you sell the second bottle?
yeah,
And
there
I
you go.
think that's
you go.
going to be the big deciding factor there.
Yep. True.
Because it's like anything else. All these, you get master tasters and master blenders. They're leaving their current positions. They're going out and doing anything, and they have. And gosh, this could be a freaking another podcast now. But they have the consumer mind share. They have the popularity behind them to kind of have that kind of coattail ride where people will come along with them, and they'll fanboy or fangirl out, and they'll buy a few bottles. But it's hard to know because a lot of you got to understand, like at least some of the other people, like they're coming from places where they could sell really good whiskey sub $50, and now they're leaving to go do source product at what 75 to 150 or whatever. Like I don't know if you can bring that fan base along with you and keep that. And keep them along with you for the long term. I just don't know if it's possible.
Yeah, how many times can you do it besides selling the second bottle? It's like, all right, you go here and release a bottle, here release a bottle. Like, eventually it runs out.
Well, yeah, that's a good point because she's been
you only have
multiple
so many times
places.
you can do that. Yeah.
I mean, I think Sweeten's Cove's a pretty good example of that. I mean, they had to come out with a sub $75 product because everything else was really expensive. And you don't see that one. It's not Penelope, I can tell you that, in regards to popularity. So that's the easy one to kind of compare it against.
Well, I would say it's not popular in our world. It's very popular on golf courses. They do really well in some places that that aren't normal. So.
Do a Pursuit United with a closure that is a golf ball. Sell it.
That's
Bushwick,
actually
like the
a-
Bushwood.
Yeah, Bushwood, whatever that is. Yeah, they beat us to it.
Oh, do they already do that? Shit.
Yeah, Bushwood. Yeah, it's called Bushwood, and they're probably playing off the whole Sweetens Cove thing too, because they're a country club too, right? And they have their own.
Well, Bushwood's the country club in Caddyshack.
Caddyshack.
Oh yeah, that's what it is. Thank you.
I think I have an old Dominic bottle that had a golf ball marker on the top of it
Yep.
that you could take off.
You know, I just can't get into golf. I've tried.
No, I don't
done.
do it.
That's why you're doing chokeholds and everything like that now.
I feel more comfortable in that.
Me and Blake just try to struggle in it.
I want to find more time to do it.
Yeah, me too. I haven't even played this year, so I don't even know what I'm talking about.
The only playing I've done is I went to Top Golf like 2 weeks ago, and that was about as much as I've done.
Did you win on Angry Birds?
That's yeah, Angry Bird.
I lined myself up to the far left of it, so anytime I sliced, I still scored points.
One of those guys.
Yeah.
Aim that way.
Oh, I just saw this. Will Ron be able to hold his tongue here on Forbidden? Nope, failed. I was seeing that in the chat.
Didn't
Good
last.
night. You got to take off. I'll see y'all. Enjoyed it.
All right.
All right. Well, hey, hang on. We'll go ahead and
Leave it
we'll end
running.
it. We'll end it for everybody here, and we'll go ahead and sign off. So,
Real quick, it's my computer. I've got 830 gigs of space. So
I can send you a screenshot. I mean, you are my problem child. You know that, right?
no, I'll leave it running.
I mean, he let you go with this audio tonight, so I'm just like, you know,
I can't believe it.
I mean,
You
I
really
can't
pushed
believe-
him to
I know.
set
He
apart
didn't say
standard.
anything about it.
Blake, you broke.
I'm kind of giving up, to be honest with you. Like, I just
Y'all sounded fine to me. I don't see what the problem is.
yeah.
Just Kenny, you just gotta keep breaking him down. He's just like, I don't care anymore.
Just at this point, you just like
Yeah.
just give up. You're like, I don't give a shit anymore. Like, it is what it is. Like,
Yeah, it'll be Lauren.
you ship them equipment, you ship them replacement equipment, and then it just nothing changes. So
2 new mics and 2 new laptops. You know,
It's like that.
at that point, it is what it is.
It's like that cheating husband that just won't change, you know.
Well, next time you come to Louisville, bring everything with you, and I'm gonna just
Yeah.
troubleshoot in person and make sure this
No,
shit works.
Brian's going to be down here next week. I'm just going to say, all right, we have one task for the week. It's we need to figure this out.
That's fine. I'll let you all troubleshoot it. All right. Well, y'all hang on.
What
Thank
do I
you,
need
everybody
to do,
that hung out in chat tonight. Appreciate it. And
All
we'll
right.
head into the
Thanks, guys.
broadcast. Cheers.